Hello, everyone, and welcome back to They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of Law Firm Alchemy. And the guest that I have today is someone who I started watching from a distance over 13 years ago when I first started getting involved in the world of lawyer success. And he has been among maybe a total of three people who, for all 13 plus years, when someone asks, who should I be paying attention to when it comes to digital marketing? Who should I reach out to help my law firm? He has literally always been in the top three for that duration of time. So I'm really excited to talk with him on the show. Maybe we'll talk about University of Michigan, go Wolverines. Guy Tsakalakis, great to have you on the show.
Charlie, thank you so much. Thank you for those kind words. The feeling is mutual. I'm so grateful to be here and really excited to chat with you today.
Awesome, Guy. So let's open with the question. What is the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
Well, as we were talking about in prep, I'm sure a lot of folks say business, but I got to tell you, I've been grateful to be a part of a lot of professors' curriculum. They are teaching business in law school. So I'm going to go a little deeper and say they don't teach about how important profit is in law school. So I think some of the basics in business are starting to be taught. So you see some people talking about P&Ls in general, but for me, profit is a big part of the key because profit is where you invest in growth, in my humble opinion.
So why is profit being left alone?
I don't business people, even outside of legal, struggle with this one, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's easy to spend, I think
It
that's
really
the
is.
answer. You think like, oh, okay, I got some clients coming in the door. I want to go spend some money on marketing or spend some money on other, quote unquote growth activities. But you got to keep your eyes on the gauges and, like, hey, look, this is the money we actually have to spend on this stuff. And it always has to be in the context of profit. Are you familiar with, I might pronounce his last name wrong, Mike Michalowicz, Profit First?
Absolutely. Recommended to all my clients.
Great. So there you go. Enough said. Go read that book.
Absolutely. And it's in the title, right? Like setting aside what you're going to take out of the practice and then reverse engineering. So is that something that you wish more law firm owners were doing?
I do. I mean, I'm so empathetic because, even though we said they are teaching business in law school, still a lot of lawyers, they're not learning business in law school. And unfortunately, so many of our conversations, one of the first things we start asking about is, what's success look like for you? Where do you want to go a year from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now? And the response is, I don't know. You tell me. And I just don't see how you can run a business without thinking about that. And again, I think we're getting better. You and I go back a long way. When we founded our business in 2008, we were still having the conversations of like, people don't use the internet to hire lawyers. In fact, that was that was the dare that we founded the company on. Is like, this can't be right. But anyway, they need to get you gotta, if you're gonna run your own firm or you're gonna be the CEO lawyer or you're gonna be the CO, whatever you're gonna be, if you're not just gonna practice law, right? You're actually gonna be responsible for the business. You gotta know business. And I wish, and look, we've come a long way. There's lots of resources on this, and you're a great resource. There's lots of books on this, but you've got to have that foundational knowledge, or else you're gonna spend wrong. You're gonna be like, I don't know why this isn't working. And you're gonna be working too many hours, and all the things that we know.
It's so interesting how it seems to be endemic to the profession overall, and this wrestling between a profession where we know that there's a lot of financial opportunity and yet a fear of discussion about it and going in deep. And I mean, you have particular firsthand experience on this. Where do you see the state of that being today, and where should it be going?
Well, it's a lot better. I'm gonna age myself here. It's a lot better than it was 15 years ago. So I'll give the profession that.
Yeah.
But it's still got a long way to go. And look, let's just talk bluntly about it. You've got
Please.
you've got non-lawyer owned law firms coming in. You've got private equity money coming in. You've got mass consolidation. You've got lawyers that are, post COVID have said, look, I'm retiring early. Firms getting bought. And so that concentration makes it more challenging, right? I mean, you can go, you do a search in your local area for legal, personal injury legal terms, and John Morgan's showing up. You're up against the machine. And so in an event, that's not to be cataclysmic or doomsday. You've got to be smart. You got to be nimble. You've got to think, I like military analogies. You got to be special forces, not just, general infantry army. And so there are ways to do it, but you've got to know business. I mean, lawyers hate this, right? They don't even want to say the words. People, we talk to lawyers, and what do you do? A marketing agency, and they want to almost vomit on you. They don't want to use the word sales. They don't want to talk about, finances. But then, you go look at the industry reports, and you see there's a lot of shrinking going on, and there's a lot of consolidation. It's those reasons. So, and like you alluded to this, but the other amazing thing is there's a huge underserved market out there for all sorts of legal services, and everybody's thinking the same way. We talk about this in SEO all the time. Everybody thinks people shop for lawyers the same way, and it's they don't. And so, getting a little more creative, that's, I think, a huge opportunity for lawyers who are willing to do it, and some are, and those are lawyers. I know a lot of them too, and they're building that brand, they're building that tribe, and they're the go-to person when someone thinks oh, I might have a life legal problem. And I think it's kind of coming full circle. I think that's still the most effective way to do it.
I think every listener would thrash me like in an old medieval times style. Put them in the what do they call those things when you're stuck in? It's not the rack, not the gallows. I was going to go with the gallows, but that's a little too disturbing. We'll go with the rack.
The rack is a little slower death.
That's right. If I didn't opt to unpack the bit about getting creative, SEO, etc. I mean, when we've got someone like you here, I want to dig in on that, because you're someone who is staying ahead of the curve, your involvement in the technology side, etc. We are in the just building wave of AI. What are you pushing for in terms of creativity in that marketing?
It's so funny. I'm so boring, because I still think, and I'll try to connect these dots, but I still think the best thing you can do is to go out there, be your authentic self, make connections with people, build relationships, marshal the evidence of your reputation for excellent service, be the trusted advisor, be the shoulder to cry on. Because here's the thing. Guess what the bots can't do? They can't do any of that stuff. The Chat GPT isn't empathizing yet. We can talk about general intelligence and all that. But, when that happens, forget about it. We're all just plugged into the matrix, and, different problems to solve. But right now,
hello, singularity.
Yeah, exactly. We can talk about that too. But for right now, the funny thing is that, this tech revolution that's happened, and it's classic. Everybody wants to jump on this, whatever it is, the shiny object, right? I was joking around on a recent, I don't remember what we were recording, but I remember lawyers, when Pokemon Go came out, lawyers were calling me and being like, hey, how do I do Pokemon Go marketing for my law firm? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. That just, to me, is the quintessential example of it. But it could be
I'm sorry. Every fuse in my brain just went dead on me when you said that, Guy.
What? I mean, but plug in whatever tech you want, right? Plug in short form video content, which is all the rave right now, right? Those are just the tools, and the tools are amazing, right? The access, the fact that you and I can get to know each other and know what we're all about over the course of a decade, and not be having to have coffee, once a week for the last 10 years. It's remarkable. And you can do that with people all over the world. And so, when I think of creative, that's what I'm talking about is it's funny because I say that and it's that doesn't sound very creative. Be your authentic self, lean into your hobbies, show a little bit about what you're all about, gosh forbid you talk about your family and your personal interests. But that's the stuff that people gravitate towards because, again, at the end of the day, we know people still hire lawyers. Lawyers are humans, right? They're not hiring logos. They're not hiring, I mean, with a couple rare exceptions, like,
Sure.
brands are tough to build in legal, and even those legal brands, there's still people behind them. And the good news is for the lawyers who are, scared of all this stuff is that um, the tech can't do that yet. The tech can't empathize. The tech can't be there for its clients. And so that's why I always say too, I'm like, look, if you're spending most of your time doing stuff that the tech can do, whatever it is, whatever the tech is you're talking about, generative AI, document assembly, CRM automation, if that's what you're getting paid to do, you're in trouble. You've got to fill your time up with the things that the tech can't do that require the human element.
Absolutely. And with the idea of the brand that you talk about, building authenticity, etc., it's one of those cases where if you're going to get involved with the tech and you don't have that baseline of, I better understand, I've done the self-investigation of what my authentic self actually looks and sounds like, the tech can only magnify what is already there. And if there's nothing there, we all know that it doesn't, any number multiplied by 0 still ends up being 0. 100%. So it doesn't matter how good the tech stack is.
No, that's right. In fact, it's even worse than that, because what happens is the lawyers go out and they deploy the tech without thinking, without having any kind of like understanding about the authenticity piece. And the tech becomes a liability, right? We've all seen the really bad email newsletters. We've all seen the really bad Twitter handles. We've all seen the really sketchy SEO and fake reviews and all that kind of stuff. And, again, I'm sympathetic. The lawyers, they're like, look, I got to compete. I got to make the phone ring tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that part, it's not going to work.
So if someone comes to you and they've got some brand level established, they're willing to talk about their hobbies, they're a big baseball fan and they love the St. Louis Cardinals or whoever. I don't know why I chose baseball, Guy. It's one of the sports that I know the least about, and yet we all know there's such good analogies. And so I'm chasing a bad metaphor here. But anyhow, they come to you, they have some of that stuff, and they're looking to amplify or to get in touch with more people. Strategically, what are you trying to make sure that they're doing if they have that established?
Yeah, and I want to asterisk that,
sure,
this depends on a bunch of stuff: practice area, geography, where you're trying to go.
This is why I like you, Guy, is because this is exactly right. This is correct what you're saying.
Well, people hate it though, right? It's like, oh gosh, it depends, and oh, he's dodging the question. But let's use a hypothetical firm. Lawyers love hypotheticals. So you're a direct to consumer law firm. Maybe you're personal injury, maybe you're criminal defense, bankruptcy, and family, DUI. That type of firm. You serve a local community, and maybe we'll say you're not in like one of the big 3 markets. Say you're in I think most people are probably in not one of the big 3.
Yeah.
And my answer to that question is, get out into your community and show that community what you're into. And again, it sounds so silly. So you're into baseball, maybe you're giving away tickets to people in your community. Maybe, and I'm going to say one, and people are going to roll their eyes because it's been so abused by the marketing people, but like, scholarships are amazing. But instead of doing the scholarship for, I want to try to get links from .edus, do a scholarship that overlaps with what you're interested in and the community that you serve. So, if you're, I'm making stuff up on the fly, but maybe you do a scholarship for, if you're a car accident lawyer, for car accident survivor, right? So take a car accident survivor to a Cardinals game. And then, tell the world about it. I mean, that's the stuff that people, they want to see you doing good in your community, because then they're going to think of you. I mean, that's the other thing too that lawyers love to do, right? That everybody wants to talk about how hard they fight, how
Yep.
hundreds of years of practice, how awesome their law school. I mean, we know, we've seen the websites,
Oh yeah.
and people don't even know what that means. 100 years of practice, that sounds pretty good. 100 years sounds good. You fight hard, that sounds important. Fighting hard, but you know what they really want is you want to be the person where it's like, that firm that took those people to the Cardinals game and does all that stuff in the community. That's how you stay top of mind with people, because that's, at least for that particular practice area, they're not like going onto Facebook and looking for like free consultation from a personal injury lawyer. Not most people, right? Some people, you see some of these private groups, lawyer to lawyer referrals, and there's referrals going on. But for the most part, it's like the stuff that they like, the stuff that they share, the stuff that they engage with. I mean, this. It's the human stuff. It's the personal stories. It's the connection. It's the community service. So that's where I would be spending most of my focus, especially early on.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking with a coaching client actually just yesterday as of this recording, and we were talking about emails. And you mentioned, the boring email newsletter. And there's a lot of boring email newsletters out there, which is a shame because, and this is true of every media format, when done right, it can be a big magnifier, a big plus for your practice. And we were going over, and she was listing out some of the topics that she was thinking about writing. And all of them were focused on some direct link to the personal injury practice. It's buying car insurance, which is kind of a relatively decent thing.
That's on the good side. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I know. Which, and mind you, I immediately said, good, love that instinct. Definitely something to talk about. But then it starts going into, are we going to talk about something like subrogation? It's like, okay, maybe we can take it. This is a fun trivia angle for the next party that you're at, but I don't know how much farther we can go. And then I started saying, hey, by the way, it's okay to share the stories that come from home. She's the mother of a young kid who's getting more active in the community. They're moving the office. She just moved into a new house, so she's dealing with like contractors there, all that type of stuff. I was like, yeah, that's what you write about. That's the whole thing right there.
Yeah. And sprinkle that sprinkle your expertise in. Like, I don't want listeners to think like, oh, I'm just going to go take pictures of, my local high schools and be like, look, it's community. It's like, no, like,
I want there to be like an NBC style, like the more you know, except it says, look, it's community that flies in when you say that.
Look, I did what they said. I'm taking pictures of my community. Yeah. So look, you still gotta demonstrate your expertise, right? But the problem is that that's all lawyers think about, right? And look, again, I'm empathetic. That's what they do. That's what we're trained to do. We're trained to identify issues and talk about the rules, and so that's what they think people want. But nobody knows what subrogation is, and no one cares. No one wants to get an email about it. I mean, you made me think of a couple of good examples. There's an attorney in Chicago, Ken Levinson. He's like, sign up to get book reviews. So he loves to read. He reviews these books. And people will say, what's a good open rate on my email marketing? And I'm like, well, you can go on MailChimp and you can go on Keep and look, and they'll publish their stats. And I think in legal, it's somewhere between 20 and 30% for like email marketing generally. That's a very vague and useless metric. Ken's got like 90% open rates because people actually want to get what he's sending them. That's the difference.
And they know what they're getting when they sign up. It's not just like, hey, I don't know, I'm figuring this out on the fly. There's a purpose to what they're getting. It drives people to it. And Ken's actually demonstrating one of my favorite strategies for any type of media publishing that someone's doing, whether it's email or even social media or print, which is curation. There's such value in curating resources. I was talking with another client about curation, saying, look, no one wants to go to the Associated Press feed directly and consume all of that. That's why the Associated Press makes most of its money selling the stories to other people who republish them. They're curating feeds. That's what every law firm can do. You can curate information. Your favorite movies, favorite books, whatever it is.
100%. And I will say this too, is that, we'll throw in a little SEO nerdery here. But
Excellent.
Google wants to surface that stuff. And so if you go look at all of their most recent updates, helpful content update, the hidden gems update, video content online, where you're talking about the stuff that you're interested in, whether, and again, some of it might be expertise stuff. Some of it might be like, you know, hey, I'm sharing this story of this situation that I just recently helped a client with. Great. But curating local stuff, like curating, I mean, the local business play, that's like the no-brainer. Go support local businesses. When you go to lunch and you're at a local business in your community, do a food review. That, because you're going to show up when other people are looking, you know, other people are looking for what to eat. And then when you're, you know, in fact, this morning I was just searching around in my local community and, you know, clicked on the perspectives filter, which is one of Google's filters. And I think we're going to see more of that kind of stuff. But there were a bunch of lawyers that were in there talking about the stuff that they, you know, lunch seems to be like the hot thing right now. Like people are figuring out the lunch things that was showing up a lot, but it's effective because now those people, they're on my radar from a search that wasn't a, you know, everybody's, you know, direct response, bottom of the funnel. This is, oh, this lawyer likes to eat lunch at the same place that I do. I'm thinking about him. And that's the most effective SEO there is. Like, because next time that person's not, I don't need to go to search to find them. Their name is already imprinted in my head.
Even better if you can then figure out a way to get that person onto your list where you continue to share your favorite lunch spots with them.
Exactly. I know you get it.
Well, and that's always that like next level thinking that I'm sure you encourage with clients. Like I can hear it and what you're talking about now and what I've seen you post on LinkedIn and all over the place. And obviously the podcast that you do with Conrad as well is creating that next level of strategic connective tissue where there's no such thing as a one is one marketing opportunity. Everything ties together. I remember hearing you guys talk about, for example, gas card giveaways, right? And using that as an amplifier for the brand. What else within your client base are you finding that's been interesting or particularly successful over a long duration of time?
Well, I'll come back to once you kind of got the table stakes on, you know, you've done the self-awareness stuff, you've done the positioning, you really know your, you know, call it USPs or three uniques or whatever it is that you're going to put out in the world as why people should connect with you. The short form video content is getting consumed a ton. And so being on LinkedIn, and you mentioned a bunch of the things that I do. That's the other thing I always say is I'm like, just do what I'm doing because I can tell you it's been effective for us.
Turns out you're not doing it by accident.
Right. It's not because I have nothing else to do than record myself, you know, on LinkedIn. But the short form video content on the major platforms, you know, I know people have different thoughts, and there are some considerations about TikTok, but you know, the psychology of TikTok. By the way, for folks that are listening to this, let me just disclaim, and this is against my own livelihood. All this stuff is bad. It's bad. They're gonna the long-term brain studies on this stuff are going to be really, really bad. I mean, you don't need to be a neuroscientist to look around and see that people are spending 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day going on endless feeds on TikTok. But since we're talking about marketing law firms,
we gotta,
the stuff on TikTok is particularly effective in terms of the reach. It's, you know, tends to be a less crowded source. Now, again, not your opportunity to do your free consultation, but the lawyers who are trying to educate and, you know, they're doing the local thing. Younger demographics are using TikTok for search. And I think that, you know, Google and TikTok are in a fight for this attention. And TikTok is making, even though there's a lot of issues with TikTok, and you go research those on your own, it's very, very effective for people in the younger demographic. So if you serve clients and that tend to skew a little bit younger, like you can do the same post, same everything, same tagging, same, you know, comparable following count, and post it on Facebook and post it on TikTok, and the reach that you'll get on TikTok TikTok.
It sounded just an exceptionally Midwestern version of TikTok.
I'm guilty of saying I'm guilty of being a Midwesterner, and I gotta say I keep saying it. It's like stuck in my head. When I was a kid, my grandma used to give me these orange Tic Tacs, and I don't even eat Tic Tacs, but I keep saying it. It's like so deep in my old brain. I keep calling it Tic Tac. But anyway, the reach on TikTok, it's remarkably different. I think some of the algorithmic differences between where Facebook is as the maturization curve of Facebook. Like they've got to make more money, deliver more value to shareholders, and so they limit organic reach more. TikTok is going to enter that phase, but I think right now they're really letting it rip. And so, and sadly, again, the other indictment that I'll say on all of us is that no one wants to read, and so people are consuming. I'm guilty of it too. That you see somebody that you know, like, and trust. You see an expert on something. You want a quick answer. And this short form video content delivers that, and it gets you in their consideration set. And the investment to record once you get your rig set up to me, man, it's different for everybody, but it's a lot easier for me to kind of riff and rant on a short video on LinkedIn than it is for me to write a blog post or an article or, and again, they're not equivalent because, a deeper dive on something, I still write, but day to day, week to week, like if you're just talking about eyeballs and attention, the short form video content works really, really well. But again, you got to have those foundations there. People that think they're just going to go record on TikTok and dance their way to millions. I got some bad news for you.
Some very, very bad news. Even within all of that, I still remain a relatively strong advocate of including long form video in a strategy as people get into, say, mid funnel rather than top of funnel, right? I even look at it as the deeper we go into the funnel, the lengthier content can or even should become. If we're working with the old AIDA formula, attention, interest, desire, action. Yeah, the attention level, there's just a lot more media that law firm owners have to play in these days. I mean, when we think back, say, a decade ago, it was, well, sure, I guess I'm posting on Facebook. Maybe I'm doing this Twitter thing, but even then, most people were pretty hesitant. I mean, gosh, we can remember when Twitter was still predominantly photos of the food that you ate. That was like an era that existed. And it was like Facebook, Twitter, this Instagram thing starts to come along, but no one's really paying attention to it. And now it's so difficult. I mean, you go all the way down to like posting on Google Posts on your Google business profile, doing those frequently. You've seen like this whole arc, Guy, of the additive nature of technology, of platforms. When you're trying to project, I don't know, 90 days ahead, a year ahead, 3 years ahead, what are you thinking about where this is going?
So I don't want this to devolve into yet another conversation about AI, but
we kind of have to, in a way.
It's totally a game changer. I mean, and I think what's going to happen is this, just like everything else with tech, it's going to get abused, right? We've already when OpenAI first, released OpenAI and ChatGPT to the masses, of course, like everything
just
else,
about 1 year ago.
Yeah, and like everything else, the SEO community was ready to abuse it and beat it to death immediately. So we saw SEOs that were hooking up their ChatGPT API to their WordPress API and cranking out 10,000 pages of new content every single day. Google came out and said, we're actively trying to filter AI-driven content. However you want to interpret what happened next, Google did a 180-degree turn and said, we don't care if you put AI content out. We're just going to try to look for quality filter. Yeah, right.
Google changing their mind? What?
Yeah, right. So we don't care whether or not it's human written or not. It's got to hit these quality signals. And then more recently, there was a big fight because a Verge journalist wrote this article about how SEOs ruined the internet. And then AJ Cohn wrote this great piece called It's Goog Enough. And go read both of those articles. They're very good. But this is I got to lay this foundation, I guess, to answer your question. My suspicion is people are going to continue to abuse it. And we were just talking about this the other day. LinkedIn, I was joking around that it's LinkedIn GPT, because you can start to see people who are just posting their generative AI posts on LinkedIn, and they're commenting, generative AI comments, because they got to get those engagement metrics up.
Yeah.
And the issue is this: people I know in real life, like that I actually have a real relationship with, are doing this in comments on my posts. And I'm not self-righteous here and like trying to cast aspersions and like say don't use AI. Like, great, use it. But once I can tell that you're using it, once I can tell that it's not you, it's some kind of automated thing, I'm less likely to engage with it. And again, it's not that I hold it against using the AI. Now, the issue, of course, because again, we're looking out a year, 3 years, 5 years. So what happens? Well, in my opinion, when that starts happening in mass, the people that have developed a reputation online that it's fake, that it's AI, they're going to be in trouble, because the people, ultimately, again, it's the bots aren't hiring lawyers yet. People hire lawyers. And so when I see that and I know, then I'm like less likely to engage with it. I'm less likely to trust it. And so I think there's going to be this reckoning on trust, and it's going to get worse, because we got deep fakes coming. We're going to see video avatars and all this stuff. And so look, sometimes and event, we can get super philosophical about this if you want, but sometimes you're not going to be able to tell. And if you can't tell, maybe it doesn't matter, right? We're in the Matrix and it's like, it tastes like steak. I can't tell the difference. Maybe I don't care. That's a philosophical question. But in the real world, well, whatever this world is that we are experiencing right now, if I think it's fake, if I think, if I see fake reviews on your profile, if I see generative AI driven posts and comments, it's not that I like have something against AI. I don't. But I feel like I'm not engaging with you, the person. And so the people in this context, the lawyers that are making the commitment to say, look, generative AI is great for content ideation. It's great for outlining. It's great for with some trust but verify research and editorial. It's really, really powerful tool. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to disclaim, I use it.
I use it too.
Yeah. But it's critically important to me that when I'm publishing, or that when I'm talking or demonstrating expertise, that it's me more than it is the generative AI, right? And again, I don't distinguish it from other technologies, right? Like if I use a spell checker, is a spell checker like, hey, I made the typo, so that was authentic me, but I changed it because the spell checker fixed it. I don't think that hurts my authenticity the same way. If you're just rote copying and pasting, I think it does. And I think that you're going to see this, we're already seeing it, but there's going to be this like, and I'm going to use your word, people are going to be curating their feeds a lot more, right? So you're going to start to see more people, hey, I don't need to see this anymore, so hide this ad, hide this, no less, all the platforms have it. Show me less content from this person, show me less content on this topic, mute this, or the death knell, which I've seen this happen to lawyers where they get blocked and they can't figure out what happened, and it's like, well, yeah, man or woman or whomever, you're people don't want this, right? People are filtering you, and that's not a place you want to be.
Yeah, it is fascinating to watch all this happen. I remember the first time that I logged into LinkedIn and went to write a post, and it had an AI writing option for me. And I looked at it, I went, this is both terrible news and great news at the same time. I hope a ton of people use it, because it will just make my content stand out that much more. Like, please, by all means, everyone, dive deep into the generative AI side, because at least for the next, and look, I know that they're working on GPT-5. They've openly talked about chasing AGI. But for the next couple of years, at least, I feel modestly safe in that prediction. For the next couple of years, I'm going to keep writing my own stuff, because it just stands out that much more.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the other thing that the Chat GPT can't do, it can't be Charlie. So it can't have the experience you're having with whether you're sharing something about a story, whatever it is. If you're sharing your experience. It's unique to you. And I say that, and maybe it sounds like kind of like vague, but I'll try to give an example that's like more tactical. So like if I write something about something that happened with my kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this just happened with my kids, and this is what I learned from it. Good luck, Chat GPT, to try to create similar content, right? Now, it might be able to create something generic about parenting, but
Yes.
if the more that it's about you and your authentic experience, the more temporally, mix in some recent news stuff, because ChatGPT is not good at that. That's the stuff that resonates more with people, because they're having similar experiences, and it doesn't feel canned. And again, Conrad and I were talking about this the other day too. This concept isn't new, right? Like people have been paying other people to write on their behalf. I mean, SEOs know about outsourced content production even before AI was a thing, and it's the same issue. In my mind, it's the same issue. It's just maybe it's on steroids now, because all you need is an API as opposed to hiring a ghostwriter or something. But
Right.
it has to speak to your voice. And again, I don't have anything against ghostwriting. If the ghostwriter is sharing your experiences and your voice and just tends to be a better writer, and people can't tell the difference, they're like, that sounds like Guy, great. But the
Yeah.
moment the cat's out of the bag, then people are like, oh yeah, it's not Guy.
Yeah. And I would even say that if a good barometer on that is if someone found out that it was ghostwritten and came to you and said, hey, your book was ghostwritten, and you feel like it is an indefensible stand for you because it is so far removed from your voice, the accusation is just easy and obvious, maybe you've leaned too far in that direction. Same thing with generative AI. If someone were to come to you and say, hey, I think you're generating all your stuff off of AI because it seems fairly obvious, and you can't defend that position, you're probably too far into the resource and need to start injecting yourself back into it.
100%. Very well said.
All right, Guy, before asking you, even though, like, honestly, we could probably talk for a few hours about just this stuff alone and how to apply it. We'll come back and have another conversation in the future, I have no doubt. But before I ask you the final question of the show, if people want to learn more about you, follow you, get more information from you, where should we direct them?
You can go to LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can go to attorneysync.com. I've got all my contacts there. As we've been talking, I've been spending a lot more time online on LinkedIn, but the fortunate thing for me from a branding position is you just start typing GYITSAK, and I'm one of the few handles that comes up. So
There you
connect with
go.
me
Easy
there.
enough.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, all those links will be in the show notes. Also going to link over to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, one of the awesome podcasts. I love the fact that you guys have the podcast where it's the two friends talking shop, news stories, industry news, etc. That's just an enjoyable dynamic.
I really appreciate that. And it's, Conrad and I have known each other for a long time. And, this is another thing. I think this is a good thing for lawyers to hear too. Conrad and I we're competitors. We're competing in the same marketplace. People are like, why would you promote a competitor? Like, why would you bring more attention to the competitor? And I'm like, have you ever heard I'm going to get it wrong, but you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. I'm like,
Yep.
there's so much more value with collaborating. And some lawyers are so like, call it walled garden, or like, we want to defend the castle and like build the moat. And I'm like, you're missing the boat. Who do all these other lawyers, they can't take all these cases. And so how do you think referrals happen and all that kind of stuff? So I guess my final thought is you gain way more out of collaborating and cooperation than you do trying to just be like everybody's enemy.
Absolutely. All right, Guy, last question for you. It's a quick little three-parter. What are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
Oh gosh. What am I? So there's Chris Walker. He's the founder of Refine Labs. This gets super nerdy stuff, but he's the TLDR is on qualitative versus quantitative attribution, because everybody's been so focused on direct response, and he's like, you're missing the point. Things like podcasts where you can't do attribution as well, that's where you want to be. So don't throw your analytics out the window, but keep in perspective. I'm watching you, Charlie, man. I love what you're doing. I'd love to. I'm on LinkedIn a lot more than I've been in a long time, so I think I give folks find connections on LinkedIn. I think is the best thing that I can tell you. And then I was going to say a listening one. I gotta give a shout out to Metallica. I had the opportunity to go see Metallica live, and so, in my mid 40s, dude, reliving my high school gym days, and it was an amazing show. And they're still rocking out after 42 years. So good on them. Hope to be as
There
lucky.
you go. And something we're both watching is the Wolverines. Well, have been watching. The Wolverines have a great season. That's been good.
Wolverines. I've been very careful because I know, sign stealing gate is still a thing. But here's my thing:
Yeah.
whatever the outcome is, due process. You've got to give, the Big Ten. I mean, what are you doing here? You're not even following your own investigative rules here, folks. Now, again, I'm my bias, and whatever they find out, whatever they find out. But look, I bleed maize and blue, so go blue.
Go blue. And on that note, Guy, it's been awesome having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Charlie, thanks you so much. Great to see you.
And we will see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.